Next, let's look at the shoulders. So a lot of old school boxers talked about popping the shoulders. What do they mean by that? Well, I'm glad you asked. It might be useful to answer that question by contrasting it to what karate says about the shoulders. Karate, contrary to boxing, tells you that when you throw a punch, they want you to they tell you to rotate to a point, but they want you to stop when your shoulders are square to the target. But many boxing coaches, especially the old school ones, want you to pop your shoulder. So instead of stopping, like the karate people say, they think you're going to injure your shoulder if you pop it. Not so. But the old school boxers want you to pop it, or what they mean by that, instead of striking the target and your shoulders being square to the target, stopping there, they want your shoulders to rotate out a little past your center line into the target. You can see the body dynamics better from the side. So instead of stopping here, I'm going to pop my shoulder into it. Do you see that? Instead of stopping here, I'm rotating out. This gives me more reach, but it also gives me more rotation. And that's what we're talking about in this rotating and twisting installment. The power's in the twist. That's where the power comes from. Not from falling into the target, from twisting into it. And this popping of the shoulder gives you more twist. So instead of stopping square and losing much of my power, I'm gonna power on through and penetrate into the target. It's gonna give me more range and more power and more snap in my punch. So sorry, karate, you're not gonna injure your shoulder, but you are going to get more power, speed, and rotational and twisting power out of it. As a matter of fact, a lot of the old school boxers used to say almost to try to hit the opponent with your opposite shoulder. In other words, they wanted you to rotate so much that it almost felt like you were trying to hit him with your opposite shoulder. Like this shoulder was going to come around and smack the target. Now obviously it's not going to rotate through that far, but they just wanted you to get the feel of rotating. But you're popping it out with such a powerful twist that you'll rotate your shoulder blades going back. Almost as if you were trying to bring it around and hit the target with the opposite shoulder blade. Now it's time for phase 2 of the look, ma, no hands exercise. This time, instead of our hip, we're going to talk about our shoulders. So I'm going to take the arms out of the equation again, and I'm going to try to strike the bag with my shoulders. This kind of can't tuck them in this time. I'm going to put them behind my back. And I'm going to try to hit the target with my shoulders. I'm going to move this bag with my shoulders. I've got to be a little closer, of course, because I don't have my arms in the equation, so I'm going to use my shoulders. Can you powerfully hit this bag just by twisting your body? Then I want you to do this 7 times. So another fun way to make sure you're using the twist to power your punch instead of just your arm, I like to call the T-shirt flap test. So take your arms out of the equation again. Can you rotate? And can you get the flaps on your T-shirt to work? Okay, remember in our path of the whip installment, we talked about the anchor and pivoting principle of our feet. What's so important to twisting, to getting a proper rotation and twist in your body, we're going to look at it again, but in a little bit more deeper detail, and see how it relates to the twisting and rotating of our body. So have one foot anchored or planted and the other foot pivoted. Now, which one should I have pivoting and which one should I have anchored? Depends on which punch you're doing. For a jab, I want the opposite foot planted or anchored, and I want the same foot as my jab, my lead foot, on the ball, so that I can rotate with it. Now if I'm doing a right cross, or just a cross, then I want the opposite foot, my lead foot, planted, or anchored, and I want the same foot that's punching, in this case the cross, the batting foot, on the ball of his foot. I want the same side that's punching pivot to the opposite side of that which is punching to be anchored. So in the case of the jab, would look like this. In the case of the cross, would look like this. Okay, so your feet are crucial to this whole twisting and rotating principle. If your feet are locked down, or they're not rotating properly, then how's your knee going to rotate, and your hip and your shoulders? All of that is not going to happen. It ain't going to happen. It's bad grammar, but it's kind of fun. The whole twisting process is going to be impeded if your legs are locked down. But if you're getting a proper twisting of your feet, proper rotating of your feet, using the anchoring and pivoting principle, it greatly increases, instead of impeding your twist, it greatly increases your twist. When I first started training again in boxing, I had shoes similar to this. And they had very strong tread. As a matter of fact, when I very first started doing it, I went and got a pair of running shoes. That was crazy, because running shoes are designed to dig into the ground so that when you're running, you have proper traction, and they don't want lateral movement, or they don't want rotating. They want you to just go forward when you're jogging or running. And that forward's assisting you and it's helping you not to slip. That's great for running. That's horrible for boxing and for really kicking as well, because you need to be able to pivot. And if you're fighting the tread on your shoe, then it's going to be very difficult to master that. You can't fight your equipment. Remember when I talked about not fighting your boxing glove in the path of the whip, that you want to dig in with your knuckle and you don't want to have to fight your glove? This already has a pretty big learning curve, so you don't need to be fighting your equipment. Well, the same thing's true for your shoe. You don't need to be fighting your shoe. Before I figured this out, I was wondering why it was so difficult to rotate. And I was always fighting my shoe. And it was to the point where my knees were hurting so bad that my wife had to buy me knee braces. And I would exercise, and I would do taekwondo, and I would do boxing with my knee braces on. My knees hurt all the time. It was because I had the wrong shoes. So get a pair of boxing shoes, or a pair of wrestling shoes, or a pair of martial arts shoes. These have relatively smooth soles on the shoe so that they can provide proper rotation. Boxing shoes especially have enough grip to give you some traction, but enough smoothness to allow proper rotation so that you're not fighting your shoe. You can't fight your equipment or it's going to make training very difficult. So get some proper shoes and get rid of the shoes that are making you fail at your technique. So now it's time for phase 3 of the look ma, no hands exercise. Let's add the feet to that. So this time we're going to hit it with our shoulder again. We're going to put our hands behind the back, take the arms out of the equation. We're going to try to hit it with our shoulder, but we're going to use the anchor pivot principle and hit it with our shoulder. And I just want you to see how much easier it is to get that rotation to do so when you use the anchor pivot principle. It becomes a lot easier to get that rotation for that explosive strike. Try it. Strike. Instead of the bag, let's use our shoulder. Strike. I want you to do that 7 times. Are we starting to feel that twisting power? Just like the whip. Well, until our next installment, remember, the more sweat in the gym, the less blood in the ring. This is Todd, the Wildcat Christopher at tacticalboxing.com, signing off.